The Simone Feiler podcast, giving authors a platform. Welcome to the podcast.
Today I have the incredible honour of speaking with James Pittar, a man whose life story is as inspiring as his accomplishments are remarkable. James is an internationally celebrated marathon swimmer, renowned for his extraordinary feats in the open water, despite being completely blind. His autobiography, Blind Vision, offers a profound look into his journey from a sighted youth to a pioneering figure in marathon swimming, brought beautifully to life through Brisbane Audiobook Production with the talented voice prowess of Les Horovitz, who also joins us for the chat today. Welcome to the Simone Feiler podcast, gentlemen.
Thank you, Simone.
Wonderful to have you both. Thank you. So, James, you released the print version in 2019, which has been so well received. What inspired you to do the audiobook version?
Simone, I wanted to put my autobiography that, as you said, was published in 2019, always onto an audiobook. Obviously, I wanted a lot of blind people around the world to be able to listen to the book, obviously being blind myself. And that was always my thought, that I wanted to put it onto audiobook, but I just didn't really get, I tried many options. Then I think in February of this year, I thought, right, I'm going to have another go at putting this onto audiobook. And I went through Google and I found Brisbane Audiobook Productions, and I went, right, I'm going to send them an email. And I went through and I got, Simone gave me a call back and sent me emails, and we went from there. So it has taken me, 5 years to get it to an audiobook production. You know, as I said, it did take some time. I'd had to go with some other people to do the audiobook and that hadn't worked. So I was just so fortunate to find you guys.
Oh, thank you so much. Well, it's been an absolute privilege working with you and bringing your story to life with Les. Was there anything in particular that made you choose Les to bring it to life?
I chose Les. I was given about 8 different people through you, Simone, to have a listen to. And I just thought Les's voice was the right voice for my story. I don't know Les's age, and that's not important, but I thought he sounded a fairly similar age to me, and that might not be true. But just thought his voice sounded just the right tempo and the right for my style of book. My book goes through different situations, and we look at the subtitle of my book, which is A Blind Man's Courage in the Face of Loss, Triumph and Love, and that's around loss of eyesight and triumph of all my swims and the love of my family and wife and daughter. I just thought Les's voice had the right inflection, the right tempo, and just did the whole book justice. And I actually really think that the book that Les did was just brilliant. He really brought it to life.
He's got a beautiful warmth about his voice, hasn't he?
He does indeed, absolutely.
Yeah. Les, how did you enjoy narrating James's book?
Well, firstly, thank you very much, James, for those kind words. I'm a couple of years older than you, but no, I don't think that sort of matters too much in the scheme of things now. But yeah, I loved the story for a start. It was inspirational, as I said to Simone before we came on, James, what you put your body through on all those occasions, not only the actual swims themselves, but the training was just mind-boggling. And I thought, I think I'm doing well. I'll go to the gym 3 times a week, 45 minutes at a time. I thought, gee, that's pretty good for me to do that. But for you to do what you do, or what you did in those swims and the training leading up to those swims, it was phenomenal. But I think as well, James, not only was it an inspirational story about you, but I thought it was a really inspirational story about the people around you as well. It really told a lot about your family, your mum and dad, your loyal friends, the team that came with you to all those swims, Narelle and Sticks and all the guys and your coaches. So It was, the way the story was written, James, it was not wasn't a self-centered story. It was about you, sure, but it was also about the people around you and the people that helped you. And I thought that's why it was such a great story, because it wasn't just about me. It really told a lot about the people who were in your life, people who were around you. And I was really inspired by those people as well.
Well, blind vision not only chronicles James' remarkable life accomplishments, but it could also be considered a comprehensive travel guide, if you ask me. He's been to so many countries, swum in so many different bodies of water. It's an epic ride full of inspiring ups and downs, offering a deep dive into his life's journey and obviously his support team. But out of the very many, James, can you choose a favourite place and a favourite swim?
I think, well, if we just talk about the place, for me, Gallipoli is my most favourite place in the world outside of Australia. I love Australian history. I did the Gallipoli campaign at school, and I loved it from the opening minute. So for me, as a place, that is the place. But if we talk about a swim, it's certainly the Bering Strait swim is the swim that, to me, that came out of the blue. I mean, when I obviously went through listening to the audio that Les did, I think that chapter took an hour, and I think that absolutely embraces, that's like, I think 1/10 of the overall reading chapters is on one chapter. I think that says a lot about the swim. It was just a swim that really came out of nowhere, came out of an email, really. And I think that it just cascaded on from there. But the amount of things we went through in the Bering Strait swim and the amount of challenges we had along the way, not only in obviously different personnel, different languages, different styles of swimming in the cold, and then obviously the logistics of, being out there for 12 days on a Russian ship, and the elements of the fogs and the tides and the waves. I think it just is a chapter that really brings out the 16 days. It just was an enormous challenge for all, and I think it really showed the depth of who people are, I think, in that chapter. It's about, you've got people with different languages, different cultures. I hope that chapter is something that really shows that, and for me, it was probably a great thing personally, if I'm going to be selfish here and say, I'd never done a team swim before. It had always been individuals, as the rest of the book would imply. And I think for me, it was a great thing to go and meet these people who I'd never met in my life before, to swim with them and get the acknowledgement and the encouragement from these guys. And I mean, to find out later that they'd attempted this swim twice in the 2 previous years and it had failed, showed their commitment. But I think that they showed their sort of commitment and resilience to me, and acknowledged what I did and understood what I did. And I think that, to me, I'm talking about me here, selfishly me here.
Yeah, no, this is good. This is your podcast.
I would say that, to me, is the, it was a really important thing to be able to know I could go and be part of a swim with all these other able-bodied people, be respected, be accepted, and knowing that they knew your ability. They didn't talk about your disability. Yeah, that was there, but they didn't talk about, they just said, yeah, you're a swimmer. We're all swimmers. And I think that was the great thing about the swim, was that it wasn't about how far you could go, as like every other swim in the book is about, is how far you can go and how you can survive and succeed. This was about how you could relate to the cold, and that some people who may never swim an English Channel or a Cook Strait could very much compete in this or be involved in this, because it was about surviving in the cold. And it wasn't about swimming 30 kilometres, about swimming as much as you could in 10 minutes and then getting out and getting ready for the next day. I think the chapter really does relate, I think, a lot and solely towards that. And it just shows the encouragement that people gave and just the logistics. And I can now, it took me a bit of time to understand why this swim took, 3 years to be done. And just the way it was, and, the support you need and the money you need from the governments of the day. And it is, when you think back that in 1988 was the first friendship flight between Alaska and Russia, and we were doing it 25 years afterwards, and the change in countries and what they're doing and the differences was amazing. And obviously we've gone another 10 years on and things have changed again. I think, I just hope that chapter resonates to a lot of people. And then I followed up, obviously, with the chapter after, which is the final chapter of, swimming from my hero in life, Nelson Mandela's residential place back to Blauberg, I think. And that came off the back of meeting the South Africans in the Russian swim. So I think Yeah, Bering Strait swims is certainly that swim.
What do you think, Les? Was that one of your favourite swims in the book?
Yeah, when you asked James that question, I kind of knew he would say Bering Strait. Yeah, that was we know each other well already, James. Yeah, I knew that was the one. It was, as you say, it was the longest chapter of the book, and it was probably the most, even though James, you only swam, I think it was 10 minutes at a time before you had to change over because of the cold.
Yeah.
But logistically, it was the most complex of all your swims.
Oh, absolutely.
So, yeah, and just fascinating to be swimming between the far east coast of Russia and the far top northwest corner of North America.
That's crazy.
Absolutely fascinating.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I agree with James that the Bering Strait as a narrator and as a story was the most interesting of the swims. But you've also got to go back to the original, the channel swim that he did, which really how it all started for James, and that was a great triumph as well.
Mm. Well, your journey from a child with a vision impairment to swimming the English Channel was very inspiring just to hear that you did that just quietly for me. Was there a particular point that made you decide to take on that challenge,
For me, it was about I met the great Jez Renford, and he was one who sort of put the thought in my mind. I always knew that when you make some outlandish comments like I'm going to swim the English Channel, you know that you're going to get some people who think that's not going to happen or an impossibility. And I sort of I heard Lane Beachley speak at a function a few years ago, International Women's Day, and she talked about how at 8 years of age she said, I'm going to be a world champion surfer. And I thought I could relate to that she got some people saying that's never going to happen. And I thought, listening that day, yes, I know exactly where you come from, that I've gone out and said I'm going to swim the English Channel and I'm blind. I knew that would always create a lot of people saying that's not going to happen. And I think to me I just got that spark from Jez Renford, and I knew it would take me a long time. I knew it was going to be a logistically very hard thing to do. And it was about how you train for it. And the lead up had so many things, ebbs and flows in it, that things were going well and then not going well. And I'm thinking, is this ever going to happen? and I remember I met another bloke who's not in the book, Eric Wienmeyer, who's a blind American who's climbed the highest peak of every mountain in the world, including Mount Everest. And he said something like, I won't quote it exactly, he's like, everyone was waiting for him to fail. Mm-hmm. And I think I can again relate back to that. Everyone's going, well, this is not going to happen. And I'm thinking, well, I think as long as you get a good grip around you, which the book shows with my team, and you do think outside the square, that you can go and achieve it. And I think to me it was all about, if you want to achieve something in your life like the English Channel was, and you have a disability like I do, then you just have to go out there and think about, how do I get outside the box? How do I make this happen? They're the rules of the English Channel, and we need to always go to those rules. But it's how do you make it work? And you just have to think differently, and you have to train differently. And the English Channel, I was very lucky on the day. I say lucky because the weather was fantastic to me. And, on that weekend, 9 individual swimmers got out and completed swims. There was another swim for the next 5 weeks. That's luck of the wind. You pick the day.
Yeah.
Well, was that meant to happen? Hopefully, yes, and it did. But the English Channel was such a big thing. And the morning after was like, and as I've said in the book, physically I knew I'd swim the English Channel next morning. But mentally I didn't, because I just could not process that. And as I said in the book, the kid that came past 2 or 3 days later when we were out, buying some food for dinner, my mum and I, he said, you're a swimmer? I said, yeah. He said, you swam the English Channel? I said, yes, I did. And that was the first time in my mind in 3 days that I'd actually registered that I had swum the English Channel. And I think probably the enormity of the situation at that point in time of, I'd done this swim. And I think I'd realised the dream that I had for a year, and it worked. But, and I think as a visually impaired or blind person, I came out there and was able to succeed on that day. And it got me hooked into marathon swimming after that.
Amazing. Yeah. Just even the work that went into preparing yourself for that swim was incredible, like Les said earlier, and then the swim itself. But yeah, mentally getting your head around that you did that, I guess it would take some time because it's an accomplishment that a lot of people, even your friend climbing the mountains that, don't have disabilities, can't do. They can't even visualize themselves doing that. It's way too hard. And you're so inspiring, James. How did your early experiences when you lost your vision shape your mindset to begin with? I can't imagine it would have been easy going through that, losing it and then approaching all these obstacles and overcoming and even, defeating and becoming an absolute winner at everything. Were there any specific moments or influences that were crucial in that process?
I think for me, the influences would have to be my parents. Obviously, my dad being an ophthalmologist surgeon and my mum an orthoptist, which is both in the eye industry. They were certainly great influences to me. Obviously, my brother and sister. But I think it's about, I started losing my eyesight halfway through year 8, year 9 at school. And I think it's more your friends that stand by you in that situation, and they're the people, you're in a school of 1,100 kids and you've got to try and survive, and they can all see. So, it's about the friends and being included. And I think that was more the thing, yes, you have your family life and they're always going to be there around you, but it's the other things that you maintain, whether that's, and friendships are very important. And I think my friends never left me out of ling, always included me. I think I could easily have done that. I think suppose the other person who would be a great influence to me, and again, this is in the book, is the headmaster of the school I went to, Shore at North Sydney, who kept me at the school. And I think that is an amazing influence on my life, because I think if I had gone to a school only for the blind, I think that would have shaped my life maybe differently. I don't know that, and that's an unknown quantity, but I know that if I had gone and changed schools and gone to a blind school only, would that have marked me to being involved with only blind people and never meeting people like my wife, or never having my friends? I don't know. That's an unknown quantity because that didn't happen. So you can only judge that to the way it is in life. And I think that every time I go back to the playing fields at Northbridge here in Sydney, which the school has the playing grounds there, I walk away going, yeah, I was just very fortunate. And, I always thank Jika Travers, who was the headmaster of the day, for keeping me at the school, because I think it did change my life. But I don't know that because, what's that, 40 years ago, almost 40 years ago. So how do you judge that? I don't really know.
Everything you do brings you to where you are today, doesn't it? And everything that
does.
happens to you. So, everyone can look back and think if I did something slightly different, I might be where I am today. What
Absolutely.
a champion that principal was, saying, stick around, because look at what you accomplished. I mean, obviously you didn't lose any self-esteem or anything, given what you went through. You had your support team, you had your friends, you had your principal. But you also talk about your transition from seeing yourself as an underdog and embracing your capabilities. How did you see that? Was that because of your disability, or?
I think I put myself as an underdog in the first couple of the swims because, again, it was an unknown of a blind person doing the English Channel or the Manhattan Island Marathon swim. And I think I always thought I was the slow one-pace swimmer. I was always going to find it hard. I was always going to swim 10 to 15% more than anyone else would do in a swim. So I think I always felt I was this underdog person who was always trying to put myself out there to say, yes, I can do this swim. And people saying, oh, no, that can't happen. So I think I always felt as though I was the underdog in my own mind. But I think the swim that really changed that was the Martha's Vineyard swim, which was the one where the American lady asked me to come and swim, not because of my disability, but because of my ability as a swimmer. I think that certainly went, hey, wait a second. She's invited me to do this swim because she knows of what I've done. And that day I ended up actually being the leader. I think that changed everything for me. I went, well, I am accepted. can do these swims. Where have I come? And I think she was a great influence, Debbie, in Martha's Vineyard.
Yeah, that was a great chapter. What did you think of that one, Les?
Yeah, no, and of course, what that resulted was a long-term friendship as well with Debbie. I think were you godfather or something to their children and stuff as well, James?
Yeah, I'm godfather to their children.
Yeah.
And the harbour master who organised the swim and ended up marrying Debbie. So yes.
Yeah. The other thing that you haven't touched on, which I'd like to quickly touch on, is there's a whole chapter dedicated to your career as a rower, which I thought was fantastic.
Yeah, that's right.
You took a break from marathon swimming for a while, and then you actually had a fantastic experience rowing, and you also went overseas and competed in games. I think was it in Europe, in Finland, or was it?
It was.
Yeah.
I've interrupted there, sorry. It was something totally out of this world, and I think to go to Finland and be involved in rowing was such a different sport to me. I went, what's happened here? And I think rowing was, a little bit like swimming, where you used your whole body. Swimming's about, obviously kicking in arms and heads and thinking, and I think rowing's a bit like that. The whole body is being used in the motion of trying to keep the boat going. And I think rowing was just in Tampere in Finland, there was just such a great thing. And I think rowing was a lot of fun because you did it with other people and you just got out there, and it was always different conditions. You're always out there rowing on the water or trying not to fall in, especially on Lane Cove River. But Tampere was just such a great experience. And I mean, things have changed a lot since 1995, but in those days, back to being included. I mean, the Australian rowing team who were housed somewhere else always came and spoke to us, always came and met us. I mean, the first people after our group that congratulated us when we finished and we'd won our events was all of the heads of Australian rowing. They were the coaches. And I thought, come over and congratulate us. So we were in a different area of the rowing course ourselves because our event was only 1,000 metres and theirs was 2,000 metres. But they still walked over, congratulated us, and I thought, well, that shows that this is not us and them. It was you are us. Yes, you might be living somewhere else. You might be at a different hotel. You might have been rowing in a different section of the water. That didn't matter. And I went, how impressive is that you've given your time to walk over and include us? And on the day we'd finished, the next day was the end of the rowing championships for the overbody, and they invited us into a tent that was on one side of the river and sat us there and chatted to us. And I just thought it was such a different experience, and rowing was just something that I really enjoyed it. I think it really proved some moments that it was a totally different sport. And rowing for me was lucky enough came after in 1994 the trip to Beijing, which hadn't been a great success, we'll have to say. But maybe that was a good thing. It wasn't a great success because I knew I could do something. There were other things, and rowing just got me through that, and then got me through the other side of getting back involved in the open water swimming and onto the English Channel. So, I think the book, I hope, shows that you live by what you do and your actions you take, and whether some of the actions you take at that time are good or bad, I don't know. There's some things you probably, at the end of the Beijing trip, I sat down thinking to myself, did I really respond well in that situation? Yes, no, maybe not. I don't know. But I think that you have to go by your actions and by what you do. And I had to think about, do I want to take that path of, I knew I'd never make the Paralympics, or do I, go down some other path? And I hope this book also shows that you do some things in your life, and it's how you react, I think, to those things and what you do next and where you take yourself. And as I said, I had Beijing in 1994 and then Tampere in 1995, which was just the opposite, the opposite.
Yeah.
To the Beijing swimming event, and then to think that, what was that, 95, and then 2 years later starting to swim the English Channel and do the English Channel in 1998.
You turned that around. You turned it around.
Yes, that's right. It's about turning the situation around, and I always think in my life you can do two things. You can either take what's happened and make your own way in life, or you can go, be pity about it. And I thought, well, yeah, Beijing was not good. And I mean, as I said, I think some of my things I did were probably not particularly great, but that's where you learn in life, I think, by making those decisions and the way you react and the way you do things and then thinking about them. So I think in that regard, I learned a lot from Beijing that carried me on for a long time after that, probably the next 10 or 12 years, I think. And I think that was a great thing for me, that I'd learnt a lot from the way I'd reacted in that situation. And the rowing was certainly a great change. It really did take me totally away from the Beijing chapter, which has its moments.
You win or you learn.
I learned, and I didn't win, but I learned, and I learned that you have to have the battles, and you need to win particular battles. And rowing just came along in that void, which was brilliant. And I mean, I still always think it was, what was it, 25th of August? That was the other day. It was, what was that? 95. That was 29 years ago, and you think, wow. And I hope I portrayed this as my mate who had cerebral palsy when he won. I was just so thrilled. I hope that is portrayed, because I was so delighted when he won. In fact, I think I was more delighted that he'd won than, what I'd done, I think, because I just acknowledged what he'd gone through to get there. And I thought, you know what, you've come out and won. I'm thinking, and it was just the way that I was just so thrilled for him. And I think it was a great thing. And
it was really beautifully written, and you did it such justice, Les.
Thank you. It was a really a pivotal part of the story.
For sure.
That whole transition with Beijing, of course, and that experience James had with that Olympic official, and then from that the rowing, and then so that was just like that was really the central part of the story, which changed James's direction, really. So I was happy to. Hopefully, I did it justice. Yeah.
What was the most challenging part of writing Blind Vision for you?
For me, it would be that I had to put all my thoughts down, and I think I'm a fairly private person, and I think I found that, and I know I put that somewhere in the book. I found that a really difficult thing, to put my emotions and to put things that I thought. And for me, I knew writing this book would be good, but also knew it would be taking me out of my comfort zone of keeping things close to my chest type of person and putting it out there in the ether. I think the other hard thing about the book was that I do make references to my thoughts about not only about swimming, but other things, whether that's Indigenous people, whether that's Australia Day Ambassador, whether that is flags, whether that's whatever it might be, right? And I think I had to, I make those points along the way, and I do that because I think I wanted to show my thoughts at the time. So I found that really difficult, because I knew
people were going to see inside.
Well, that's right. And my thoughts, you got involved with other charities and other groups with disabilities, and the Fred Hollows and Rainbow Club that I'm very much involved with, and I knew that I had to give these thoughts, and it's where you put these thoughts as well in these chapters, making it sort of work well as well. So I think that was the first thing, was that I think I am a fairly private person. And I think, in the original book, that was the written book, I should say, that was done in 2019, I was very fortunate enough to have an editor who knew nothing about swimming. And I think that's a really important thing to have in a book, because she'd say to me, well, remember, you want the general public to buy this book. You need to make this sound and be as though if I pick up this book and I know nothing about swimming, I can still get something out of this. And I think that was a really good thing to be, in the way it should be. So, but I think, the book was always going to be a hard thing. I knew it would take a long, long time to do, which it did do.
How long did it take?
Well, it took, I'd had a couple of goes at trying to do the book, and it hadn't worked. And I went down to Marnebale Beach to do a motivation speech for a group of people involved with CAN2, which raises money for cancer and helps people do open water swims. And it was meant to be a 10-minute speech or 15 minutes, and it ended up being an hour because, well, it ended up being an hour because there were 5-metre swells at Mona Vale Beach, and they weren't going to send novices into a 5-metre swell. So they said, keep speaking, you've got all day now. So I did. And whether that was a good thing, I don't know. But it was funny. This bloke came out of the back of the group and said, have you all ever thought about writing a book? And I said, yeah, I have, but it hasn't worked. And I said, I don't know. He said, okay, give me a month and I'll come back to you. All right. And in that month's time, I had a terrible time in my life in that my mother had an accident and died, and we had the funeral in that next month or in between the month. And he came back to me at the end of the next month, and I'm thinking, I hadn't even thought about you. There's been a few other things happening in my life since you last spoke to me. I said, yeah. And I walked up and I walked away from the house that afternoon after the chat. And I said, yeah, I'm going to do this. So the way I did it was I did most of the book from memory. So every night for 25 minutes, I would put my thoughts onto a dictaphone. And I did that for 4 months, every night for 4 months. And then I would put it onto a computer. My wife would download it onto a computer. And then she sent it off overseas, and they typed it up into 2 sections. They did it over 1 month, one part, and 1 month the next. And then it came back to me, and then I had to find the editor. So and that took editing the book, the physical written book, took a year because, one, it was too long to start with. She chopped out 70,000 words.
Wow.
You'd be pleased to hear that, please, that you won't put through another 70,000 words.
That's double pretty much, or just nearly.
Put through that.
Another 6 or 7 hours in writing.
So, yeah, you weren't put through that. So she chopped that out, but made it structurally good. And, I mean, the great thing about having an editor is that she or whoever it may be can look up things online, such as people's records, such as Shelley Taylor Smith's records or Kingsley Bagarin's, and get them correct. Obviously, I'm doing it from memory, so I'm not going to have those details to be getting that specific, how many gold medals he won in Paralympics and so forth, or how many Feiler events Shelley's won and so forth. A lot of that stuff, obviously, she go and look up online and get them correct. So obviously that was another job the editor had to do, because obviously I was doing things from memory, not from specifically looking it up. So yeah, that was the way it was done. And so I started in mid-2015, and then I tried to go and get it with published houses, and that took a long time, and then ended up self-publishing it, and it published in December of 2019. I'm thinking December 2019 was when it was self-published. I'm thinking, yeah, I can go. I'm going to organise to do someone to launch the book, and then March 2020 was COVID, and that was the end of that.
Oh dear!
But I was really, the book was physical, written book is 308 pages or 111,000 words if we want to be that way inclined, and it did take a lengthy time, and it was always going to take a lengthy time because I'm not sitting down and physically writing it on a piece of paper like everyone else is. I'm doing it via a dictaphone, which was very manual. But it was very good because it did get you that opportunity to put everything into words. And I mean, also, as we did it in an overseas country, because my mate thought that was the best place to do it. Obviously, when you knock in lots of Indigenous names, they weren't too good at the, spelling and so forth of that either. But, that is it. And I think that's why it took so long. And then, as I said, then I started after I published it. I then wanted to get it into the audiobook format, and I spent a long time trying to get that done by differing people. And as I said before, that didn't work, and I thought, right, I need to find someone else. And good old Google produced Brisbane Audiobook Productions. That's all I can say. Thanks to me.
I'm thrilled. But you are so incredibly inspiring, James. Never mind, your disability. You wouldn't even know that you have a disability with what you've achieved in your lifetime, including writing the book, getting the audiobook done. Never mind the swims and traveling and everything, and, having a wonderful family and wonderful friends around you. Just, it's such a heartwarming, incredible journey that I would highly recommend anyone read it. Definitely listen to it, because Les Horovitz, both James and I have had a chat about you, and we think you did such justice narrating blind vision, such great work. How did you prepare yourself to authentically convey James's emotions? Because there were many throughout the journey, um, throughout your narration of the audiobook, and of course the journey itself.
Yeah, I mean, you've got to, when I do like an autobiographical narration like this, I mean, you just got to visualize yourself in that position that James found himself in and put himself in, and just try to feel how you would feel in that position. It's not easy to do because, as I said, I'm not a marathon swimmer and I'm not blind. But so you've just got to try and picture yourself in a challenging position. And I've had my own challenging positions myself in my life, but totally different to James. But when I was doing that, the early chapters with him gradually going blind following the disease that he had, I had to just visualize, close my eyes, think about how I would feel in that position. And then hopefully that emotion would come through in my narration. And that's what I tried to do. The other thing is, which I did, of course, I did my own research on James. And if anyone's listening and they want to know more and see more about James, if you YouTube the documentary about James, you can actually find the full, I think it was the New York Marathon swim.
Oh yes,
it's on you. I think is
that the skyscraper? Yeah.
Yes.
Skyscraper.
And I did a lot of that research as well to try and to see what it was like, and I had a look at that. Documentary on YouTube, which is fascinating. People want to see that, and all that sort of stuff. The research that I did sort of gave myself a bit of knowledge about James and how he was feeling and how he was reacting, and the team around him, and that's the work that I did. Before tackling the narration, which was really a labour of love. It wasn't a chore for me. It was a pleasure to do because it was such an inspiring story.
Yeah, for sure. Were there any sections in the book that you found especially moving or difficult to kind of bring emotion and James's personality through?
Yeah, I think talking about his parents obviously was always difficult. I lost my mum this year as well. In May, so all that sort of stuff was sort of hit home for me as well. His family, the struggles that they had, but it was also inspiring because his parents were brilliant. I mean, as I said, and I always found it remarkable that James did contract this eye disease.
Yes,
with his father being an ophthalmologist and his mother being also a medical person in the eye. What's that?
It's called an orthoptist.
Orthoptist, that's right. Orthoptist.
Yes.
The irony.
The irony that James would suffer that disease. But there was never any point in the book that James never felt sorry. There was never any self-pity.
No.
There was never any woe. There was never any of that. He just went on with it, which I thought that was really inspiring. His parents just did what they can to help him, and with all the equipment that he had at school that he went to, and then he just did it. He played soccer, he went rowing, the swimming, did all the sports that any kid would do at high school. There was never any issue about him, I can't do this because I'm blind. So he just did it, and I think that was really inspiring.
That's one of the things I took out of the book as well. It's like he didn't let anything hold him back. There was nothing that held you back, James. And it's like, I'm fortunate enough that have my abilities and I can occasionally get wallow and think, poor me. But, reading blind vision, it's like, there's no poor you. You just got to either do it or not. Yeah. And you are proof, James. That's such a good read. What about your Shelley Beach swim? It was recognised as a nominee for the World Open Water Swimming Performance of the Year. What was it about this particular swim that made it so significant for you, both professionally and personally?
I think obviously professionally for me, because organising your own swim, I think, is always a difficult challenge. And organising to do with 20 other swimmers is even more harder, and the logistics that go around that. And I think the great thing that I take away when you organise something like that and you have 20 other swimmers with you along the way, you certainly get an understanding of what these people do who organise, an annual swim, which we do here in Sydney, ocean swims through the year, and how much they must go through to organise the swim. I had 20 others, which is not, other people, they have a lot more people involved. And I think getting, to then swim from where was, I think, Collaroy Beach that year down to Shelley and then pick up 20 people and swim back to North Stain was a lot of logistics just involved. And I think it really, to me, professionally showed that organising that swim is hard, and organising 20 other people, making sure they turn up on time. Also making sure that when you tell them to get there at a certain time, that you don't get there too early, which can be a problem as well. You can't always control the currents and the tides and the winds. And I think also, so it worked really, really well. And then obviously in relation to personally, it was obviously raising funds for the Fred Hollows Foundation, which
over 100,000 so far, or like that's massive.
Yeah, throughout the times. And I think for me, I've always, as I said, that the Fred Hollows Foundation has been, been through my life really, because my dad went to uni with Fred himself in the 1950s, mid 1950s. So I mean, for me, I've really been involved with that family for a long time, even though I didn't really ever meet Fred. I think he sort of died before I what was it, 1993? So I would have only been 24-ish. But I mean, I've been involved.
I remember him very fondly from the ads and the stuff. You'd see it on TV. He was
correct.
Amazing man.
That's right. And for me, it really was in that regard. So to raise lots of money that day and to get get awareness of the Fred Hollows Foundation is, and everyone knows who Fred Hollows is and what it does do. And I think that's personally was magnificent for me, because it's about restoring people's eyesight. Yeah, I can't restore mine, but, it's knowing that somewhere else that day in the world would have been able to get their eyesight restored because of myself and the 20 others that were involved on that day. So I think that's a really was personally important to me. I mean, I said in the previous year, the 2011 swim, which was the first one I'd done swim for sight here in Sydney, that, I really hadn't grasped how important media was and how important just the awareness. And, person said to me from Fred Hollows Foundation, you might have only raised 3,500 in this swim in 2011, but you don't understand that we got 7 or 8 free ads on Channel 7 up to the news. That's gold.
Yeah.
That's worth more than you can. And how do I know, and how do we know? Spreading
the message via the media, you can't beat that.
No, that's exactly right. And it was all about, how do I do, and she said, look, we will not know how much that actually did raise in this afternoon on Channel 7 on a Sunday leading up to the news. There might be hundreds of thousands of people who watch that news. If we get 500 people making a $25 donation, there's 12,500. You can't contribute that in this point. So I think that was something that I got to learn to understand. That was awareness sometimes can be even better than money, because it may lead on to donations down the track.
Exactly.
Right? Because someone got an awareness. So it's always hard to quantify that. But I think 2012 was I got a nomination into the World Open Water Swimming Association's Performance of the Year, and then obviously we got the Performance of the Year with the Bering Strait swim, which I was one of the 65 others that did that as well. And I think my book might have even made it into the other section. There are 5 or 6 different sections in the WASA Awards.
Legendary. So the Rainbow Club Foundation is another organisation that's close to your heart. You teach disabled kids how to swim. What goes on there, and what are some of the rewarding moments that you have walked away with teaching those children?
The Rainbow Club is an organisation that provides one-on-one swimming tuition to disabled children. That most of the disabled children either have autism, cerebral palsy, Asperger's type situations. And I think for me, it was a great thing, because that's teaching people how to teach. Knowing how people can then teach disabled people how to swim is such an important thing. And I remember the founder, who's no longer alive, Ron Siddons, said, swimming in this country is is a right. It's not a privilege. And he's so true. When you live in this country where you're an island and you have pools and lakes and dams and rivers and oceans, that's such a true thing. And the thing that I've always found rewarding with this organisation is that for some kids it may be about just getting into the water in 9 weeks. They do swimming lessons one weekend every school term. So there's about 9 weeks for 4 terms. And I think, as a marathon swimmer, I underestimate I can go out and swim for 30 or 40 Ks, but for a child who has severe autism or Asperger's or whatever it might be, that just getting in the pool and doing one lap is massive. I think it took me a long time to understand that, but it always makes me go, you know what, that getting in there and doing one lap is magnificent achievement. And I think we have to respect the people who teach these kids how to swim. And I'm fortunate now, I mean, this is obviously not in the book, but my daughter Annika now does teach at a Rainbow Club, which is fantastic. You know, she's 17 and she teaches these kids how to swim. And it's about not only about teaching kids to swim, but it's about getting to know their limitations and getting to get them in the water. And it's about giving them, you know, half an hour in the water. And for some kids, being in the water is a fantastic relief. When you've got different disabilities, whether that might be physical or mobility, to getting into water is a great thing. You know, being in the water, it gives their parents also, you know, half an hour, you know, of, you know, for having a child with an autism or whatever it might be is a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week job. And this is a chance for those parents to just have a break. And I think that's also important as well. It's a family thing. Not only it's giving the child lots
immense
of fun.
joy, and obviously the parents and carers as well, you know, they get a bit of reprieve, but the joy that water brings is, you know, we all know how good it is.
Absolutely.
You in particular.
Absolutely.
Oh, well, good on you. And how lovely that your daughter's following in your footsteps, teaching those children to swim as well, James. You must be incredibly inspiring to her as well.
Oh, I'm very proud that she's gone out there and got involved and is teaching these kids and loves doing it. I think that's the thing that is great.
For sure. You've had a book written about you. Claire Daniels wrote the Swimming the Continents, which explores your aquatic activities globally. Have you read the book? Have you heard the book?
It's funny, I was sent the book. I'm not sure where the book is in my house, but I was sent the book.
You need an audio version.
I do, but I don't know where would I be able to find the book? Probably not. We have moved a couple of times. So, but yeah, she did do it on me, and it is called Swimming the Continents, and wouldn't have a clue where that is. I'm sure I could look it up on Google.
Well, people I'm sure can find it online. I know that
Yes.
I found it online.
Yeah,
but that's how inspiring you are. I mean, you've had books written about you. You've had documentaries made about you. You're famous, mate.
Yeah, no, and the documentary was, again, a lot of fun of the Manhattan swim. It's 28 minutes. It's called Swimming with Skyscrapers. You know, it was a very interesting time. I didn't respect what it was like to have a microphone stuck up my shirt all the time. And I think that, and that's not because I didn't understand that your anything you say is being heard down the line. You know, it was also an interesting documentary if you want to have a look at it, because I did the swim in June of 1999, which it tells you at the start, but it took just over 2 years in which to get it all done and get it produced. And in the meantime, obviously the 9/11 happened, and it was a difficult thing because I went to the people. I said, "Well, are we going to get rid of that shot?" And he said, "No, you did the swim in 1999. That's part of history, matey. Just because it took us 2 years and an unfortunate incident happened in between that's." And so he left it in there, and I think, okay, well, that's exactly what I think you should have done, because the event wasn't done in November of 2001. It was done in June of 1999, and you need to respect that is, that this is history. This swim was done it tells you the date you did the swim, and they were there. So I think that was an interesting thing as well. But I think the end of I won't spoil it. Anyone who wants to watch Swimming with Skyscrapers, the end bit is magnificent, and that came out of the blue. That was not staged. People might say, "Oh, you staged that." No, I did not.
Yeah,
That was
watch it. Watch it. It's incredible. So, Blind Vision is your story of overcoming adversity and achieving remarkable feats. For anybody that reads it or listens to it, what do you hope that they take away from it, James?
I hope they take away, firstly, that having a disability doesn't stop you from doing something that you want to do, whether that's swimming in English Channel or whatever that may be in your lives. I always wanted the book to be of all the fun things that can happen and showing that sport is about competing, it's about training, it's about the hard times. But I wanted to also show the book had a lot of fun and a lot of love in it, because I think anybody who does like marathon swimming or sport like that, there's a lot of hours of training and a lot of times of hardness. But I wanted the book to be about showing the love between myself, my family, but the love of having some fun and taking some funny moments and having a laugh, and maybe having a laugh at yourself as well along the way. I mean, we took a long time to write the subtitle. And I think the subtitle really does bring the book, A Blind Man's Courage in the Face of Loss, Triumph and Love. And I think that absolutely sums up the book, because it talks about, here's a blind person who became blind puberty years and secondary school. Probably not the greatest time to ever start doing that. And then it's about the love of your family and your friends, which is quite important, and your team. It's also obviously the triumph of all the swims, and hopefully that makes people have a bit of a laugh along the way. I think the other thing I'd say about the book is I hope I've showed how important trust is, because you don't do a swim as a blind person without trust. You don't trust your team, doesn't happen. And I hope that it shows the love and the trust between whoever it may be, team, family, wife, daughter, whatever, that it shows that, because as I said, you don't trust, then it isn't going to happen. And whether you accept their trust of, it's yes, James, that was a log in Manhattan. It's not something else you think it is. That's, whether you think what it is, but that's about understanding the trust of and putting your trust in someone else because you're blind. You have to put your faith and your trust in another person, and that sometimes is a hard thing to do. And I hope the book shows that, yes, it is hard, but it's also, you can have a lot of fun, and you can have a lot of funny moments relying upon people's trust and along the way they do things and understanding the way they're doing it. Because, as I said right near the start of the book, when I swam the English Channel, I realised, I think, two things that day. One, you have to trust your team, but the swimming is the easy part. I'm not out there feeding me. I'm not out there blowing a loud hailer. I'm not out there encouraging me. I'm not out there reading poetry or, whatever, in the middle of English Channel. I'm not doing that. I'm not out there doing kick counts, stroke counts. I'm just swimming, which maybe is that the easy part, maybe. And the other great thing I think I've thought being blind is that the psychology, and I hope, again, this comes through in the book, that the psychology of, it doesn't matter what you tell a blind person, because he has the trust of his team, he'll go and do it. Whether you're only halfway when you're more than three quarters, neither here nor there. That's psychology. That's about your team. That's about you trusting and knowing, even though you might know that might not be true at the time, but you've trusted them and you've taken that on, and the psychology of knowing that you trust people. I also hope that, I hope that comes through in the book as well.
It definitely does, definitely. And that was really well said. What about you, Les? What do you think listeners will walk away feeling?
Well, look, just a triumph of the spirit for me. And it's just a determination. I mean, as I'm narrating the book, once James became blind, and that was sort of reasonably early on in the book, from that point on, it really wasn't about his disability or the blindness. It was just about him doing what he wanted to do and his determination to do it. There was very few times after that initial part of the book that he would refer to his blindness. It was just doing the swim, training for the swim, going through all the bureaucratic hoops to get the permission to the swim, the relationships he had with his team. There was very little reference to his blindness at all in the last sort of probably, 2/3 or 3/4 of the book. So it was just determination, training, friendship, eventually love, and of course the birth of his daughter. And through all that, I struggled to remember much reference to his disability. It was just James and his spirit, his determination. That's what it was about for me. And that's, I think, hopefully, that's what people will get out of it too when they listen to it.
That's what I think, the determination. Yeah, and I would agree that, the disability with his vision impairment, sort of after halfway through the book, you kind of even forgot about it. It's just out there with everyone else.
And it wasn't referred to.
No.
It was very rarely referred to.
Yeah. So have you guys got anything you'd like to ask each other? Because this is the first time you've had a chat,
Sure,
isn't it?
Exactly.
It is.
I would like to ask James, are you still working for the Australian Taxation Office?
I am.
Good question.
We generally, stick clear. Yeah, that is mentioned in the book. I've worked for them for what is now 36 years.
Yeah.
So I've worked in many and varying areas, and I think that's been a really good thing as well to have worked in. And I've been fortunate enough to work in, and I don't think they get a lot of the kudos that they obviously, because of who they are, they don't. It's maybe not the most liked organisation in the world, and I understand that. But I mean, I don't think they also get the kudos that being able to work in a full-time job and a steady job, that you do get the leave to do all the things I do, right? And whether that's training or whatever it might be. So I think they deserve probably a kudos that's more than they get, because it has assisted me knowing that when I'd done a swim overseas, I'd come back to a full-time job. Yeah. And I would get leave. You talk about going and getting leave in the year 2000, the greatest taxation change in history, right?
Mm-hmm.
In GST and massive tax rate changes and those things, right? Massive change, and doing something on the spur of the moment. Obviously getting leave again, that was around another big change in the system in 2013 with the Bering Strait swim. That was also around I think a bit of a change in the tax rates, and also I think that led to there was a federal election somewhere along the way there as well in that 2013. So getting leave was always a very, you needed that support. So I think that's something that people don't acknowledge, because I think that you get the leave and you come back, and knowing that when you get off that plane at the flight and the next Monday you're back at work, yes, you're still tired and so forth, but you have a job. For some people, they give up their jobs to go and do their sporting careers and then have to come back and study or whatever they may want to do, right? Study or find another job. For me, I could walk in on the Monday, might be sore, might be stiff, but I still had a job. So I think that they need to get the kudos. And I think I also learned a lot from the different things I've done in the ATO, such as being on inquiry phone lines, speaking with people with extenuating circumstances, I think has always given me good things in my life. And it's as I said, to have lasted 36 years is great.
Yeah, well, they do deserve the credit that they supported you through all your swims and your times away overseas doing those marathon swims. So yes, they do deserve credit for the support they gave you in that.
Absolutely.
Well, good on you, keeping a full-time job down, doing all of that, traveling the world, swimming pretty much everywhere there is to swim on the planet, writing a book about it, and now having your family walking in your footsteps. Amazing. A round of applause. So this is the first time I've actually worked with you, Les, narrating, and obviously the first time working with James. How was it working with me here at Brisbane Audiobook Production? And, how did you guys find it?
Simone, it was an absolute pleasure. You always responded promptly to any queries. So absolute pleasure working with you. And I do hope that I get the chance to narrate another book with you under Brisbane Audiobook Production, because it was a pleasure to work with you, pleasure to meet you now.
Oh, thank you.
And I hope we can do it again soon.
Me too. Looking forward to it.
I'd like to say the same thing. Firstly, Les, thank you very much for doing the book. As I said earlier, I think that you brought the whole book to life, absolute to life. And I wanted to say again, the same as Les, that your promptness at emails, phone calls, and relaxed very relaxed. There was nothing phased you. Give me a call. I always felt sorry if I called you on a Sunday. It was no. That's it. I just thought your promptness in responding to emails, which for me, I suppose, is an important thing, because I'll send out an email thinking, are you going to get a response, whoever that may be, too? And your response and your phone calls and taking the phone calls was absolutely brilliant. And that, to me, is a really important thing. And, it was so different to the other people I tried who never responded. And that's very frustrating. But you are magnificent. And I just think that makes such a difference. And, to think that I looked at some emails the other night, or a text or something, and I think I got onto you guys in mid-February, and the book's been done by late August.
Yeah.
110,000, 111,000 word book has gone and has been done in 6 months on audio.
Yeah.
That just shows you how good Simone and Les you are. I think that just says it all. And that included, obviously, reading lots of documents and, obviously for me to go through and do things, but it also meant that, it's about getting emails back and forth. That, there's no way that you can do an entire project of 10 hours of reading and all of the stuff that's involved in 6 months, not unless you're a brilliant organisation. That I think sums up 6 months. People are looking and say, you did what in 6 months? I said, yeah. You got to remember the first couple of months was all about just getting to understand how it worked. I think I sent the PDF of the book off in late May.
Yeah, that's right.
I think that just says something about you guys. That sums up that you can produce this thing inside 3 months of when I first sent you the first copy. I think that just says how well both you and Les read everything. I mean, Les just read the chapters, and I gave Les many a lovelier town name in the world, didn't I? That really could get some beauties along the way. But
I'm trying to think of the one name. The
Shanakali and
Shanakali.
Shanakali.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah, I did try to look it up when I was doing it, but I'm glad you picked me up on that. But we got there in the end.
We did. But the thing is, it's about you put that into Google and it gives you 3 different.
Yeah, that's right.
Like,
Correct.
How do I? What am I going to do here? So I think to me it just shows, and I would say to anybody who's listening to this podcast, right, I would go and use Brisbane Audiobook Production.
Aww.
Because you are very prompt, you're very quick, you're very concise, and you're very good at what you do.
I love my authors. You guys are the best.
but you also gave options, like, there were different voices, or there was different other things you could do, right? Anyone I would say is go out and use Brisbane Audiobook Production. You'll find it very easy. You'll find the people very easy. The readers are fantastic. It's about finding that level of what's going to work. I mean, I was just very fortunate I found you guys.
Well, I'm really happy that you did as well. We've thoroughly enjoyed working with you, James, and your book. We've already uploaded it, so it's available imminently on your website, and also on 50 plus online global retailers, including Audible, Google, Apple, Spotify. I won't list them all, but your favorite online audiobook retailer. But where can people find out more about you, James, if they want to contact you?
Well, they can go to my website, which is www.jamespittar.com. And I do have a YouTube channel, which I've just started, which is James Pittar Blind Marathon Swimmer, which I need to put some things onto that again, and I'll need to get, obviously, people to help me like yourselves to put things on there about the book. But, my website gives lots of information about me, and that's the best place.
And you do public speaking as well, don't you? If anybody wants to have you have a chat with their school or their organisation, you do that sort of thing?
Absolutely, yep. Absolutely. They can either phone me, they can or send an email to my email. Absolutely they can, and that's I'm happy to do any public speaking for schools or charity.
Excellent. And I'll put all the links in the bottom of the podcast so you can check them out there as well and get yourself straight to James's website. Guys, thank you so much for the chat today. I've loved it. And Les, thank you so much for joining us and your beautiful work on James's book. Really good meeting you for the first time online. And
thank you, Simone.
Look forward to working with you again. And James, rock on. Looking forward to your YouTube channel and what you're going to do on there soon.
Thank you very much
for all you've done for me. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks for joining the Simone Feiler podcast. What's your story? Contact Simone for a chat at brisbaneaudiobookproduction.com.